Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and today I want to make a video that is, well, this video has been asked for a long time. We have about 9 days until Shadowlands actually drops, and I felt at this point, if we're going to make it for this expansion, at least for this patch, now was a good time to do it. So this video today is going to be based around the weak auras, the add-ons, the profiles, everything that I am going to be using for Shadowlands, how to import them, which ones have profiles you can copy of mine, which ones can't. If they're not able to be copied, how you set them up. Now, all the weak auras and profiles and add-ons are also linked on my Twitch. If you want to grab them, I'll have the link to my Wago in this video's description and a full list of my add-ons in the video description as well. But if you want them, you can grab them on my Twitch, come by, ask any questions, drop a follow, hang out anytime. There's also a link in my Discord as well, if you want to hop in there. So, let's start off with the, I guess, more important weak auras that I'm using, and then get into the other add-ons like Plater, Shadow Unit Frames, Bartender, all of that. So I want to say these are the weak auras for the most part that I plan on going into day one of Shadowlands with. Now, over the course of the first few weeks, heading into Nathria and later into the expansion, I will obviously have more. This video probably won't be updated at that point in time with all those, but I will keep my Wago updated with all of them. So starting off with the first one here, this says BFA talents, items, Azurite, all of that. What this basically is, shows you your current talents that you have in any situation. I'll end up modifying it for legendaries and things like that, but it might not seem incredibly important. First of all, you can hover over any of the tooltips here and it'll tell you exactly what it is, which is really cool. This weak aura has saved me so many times going into a boss with the wrong talents, into Mythic Plus with the wrong talents, the wrong Azurite, thankfully that's not a thing anymore, the wrong legendaries, which could be a thing in Shadowlands, and hey, if you're a streamer, obviously it's easy to just, you know, hey, my talents are up in the top left corner. But this is actually an important weak aura, I feel. Like I said, you know, I'm not a complete five-head all the time, and, well, I will say I've pulled bosses running Destro traits with AF, playing Affliction, vice versa. So, I think this is important to have. It's very small, doesn't really take up a lot of space, and is an easy reference point last second if that timer is counting down and you're not sure if your talents are correct or not. Second one here is combat time. This is a timer that appears when you're in combat, and this is actually really important. For the most part, if you're in early progression on a boss, you're not necessarily always going to know timestamps on certain abilities that are coming out, like how much time is between one large damage-based ability and a second one. For CD timing, just knowing timestamps on fights is very important, and just in general, even outside of like abilities coming at you. It's important to know how long you've been in combat for, whether you're gauging your CDs or more so other CDs. It's an important like weak aura to have, and I reference it just so often. And plus, rating, everything. And once again, it's pretty small. You can just put it somewhere here out of the way, and you're good to go for the most part. The third one here is actually a Demonology weak aura. Now, this is one that I'm using for tracking wild imps. This is actually made by Darianopolis. There's a link to that in my Wago as well, to his actual current updated version of it. So what this does, I'll drop an actual hand of rule in here. What this does, this shows the current total amount of active imps you have being 3. If I cast a hand here, it'll go to 4. 4. The 3 here, this indicates how many imps are actually in that pack. There's a 1 now because I put 1 in this pack, and this is the actual duration of said, I guess, remaining imps. That actually changed from like 4 to 12 there because we dropped combat. So imps have a baseline duration attached to them that is separate from their actual energy counter. Actually, apparently he's living a little longer than he needs to be. Probably should be updated there. But regardless, so if you're in combat, it will give you the remaining duration based off their energy they're expending, and if you're not, it will give you their remaining duration based off how long they're just there in the first place. I believe the duration was updated recently to like 30-ish seconds or so. I'll get that fixed, but that is actually like the main implosion, I guess, imp implosion weak aura that I'm going to be using for Demonology. I think it's a really solid upgrade over what I used before in BFA. This one here, Dungeon RIO in class. This is asked about a lot on stream. Basically, it's not working on beta right now. What it will do, it will put the color of the class, like purple for Warlock, yellow for Rogue, orange for Druid. Let's be real here, no one plays a Druid. Mythic Plus, and it'll put the color over the icon here, basically showing you what comp looks like in that group. I imagine it'll be updated to some extent for Shadowlands. At this point in time, it's not working, but if it is, once again, I will update it in my Wago. Obviously, the Ouroboros weak aura lap tracker, very, very important. Spend most of my time in Ouroboros running around in circles here. There's that. However, this one here, this is actually a bit more relevant. So the one that just says Ouroboros, this is the one that puts the icons here: the bank, the weekly vault, the inn, barber, enclave, basically everything. I'm actually really surprised that they don't have these icons on the map just passively, but getting around Ouroboros, to me, even at this point, regardless, is still a bit of a nightmare. So this weak aura is actually a lifesaver. I believe it was made by Kib. I'm not 100%, but it is indeed a lifesaver. So getting into the more Warlock-centric ones here, this is my central weak aura. Now, this was initially, like, the skeleton structure was based off of Afinar's BFA weak aura. However, I changed a lot of things over the course of BFA and also heading into Shadowlands. The shard bar is from Not. You can change it if you want color-wise, something like that, but it is from Not. It will display periodic partial shards. It'll change colors when you're shard capped. It works. It's good. This also has all of the actual Covenant abilities, IC, Decimating Bolt, Tithe, Soul Rot, in addition to updated pandemic trackers for Corruption, Agony, Siphon Life, Unstable Affliction. There's also a pandemic tracker built into Scouring Tithe for this weak aura as well. For the most part, these central one icons here are PvE based ones. We have some side ones, some on the left and right here, like Death Bolt, Rapid Contagion, Soul Shatter, Curse of Elements, Nether Ward, Curse of Frailty, I believe, Amplified Curse, things of that sort. There is indeed an ID tracker. Basically, every kind of talent that you want or that you have is built into this weak aura. I have a separate weak aura, which you can see right here, that tracks legendaries in your main Tyrant cooldown, Infernal, Dark Lair, which is also built into this here too, but this is a bit more in-depth. So this is the main central weak aura that I'm going to be using for the duration of Shadowlands. Roaring Blaze was recently added. There are a few different icons here. I'd say like Alt, Alt, Alt. Basically what this is, it changes the position of Command Demon and a few other abilities when a different talent is selected, for example, that's a bit more, that I want to emphasize a bit more. Typically, I'll move it more towards the center here, either like in the main row or the row above this, because it's a bit more impactful when, say, Command Demon is at a certain point in time. Moving on a bit more here, let's talk about this one. So, this one is called Warlock Legendary Ability Tracker. Now, these are pretty much all from Not. The actual Warlock, N-O-T, Not. So this tracks your Dark Lair, your Infernal, your Tyrant. If I end up closing it out here, you'll see my Tyrant, there we go, should be, let's close this out. There we go. My Tyrant is here. This 0 here, this is Not's demonic consumption tracker. So it will indeed, let me actually drop a hand of Ghoul in here. It will update based off your current active pets and the actual health that they give towards demonic consumption. 238 for 3 imps to pop a Grimoire. Vile Fiend. Pop a set of dogs here. And you can see my Tyrant is still off CD basically. Start casting your Tyrant, it turns orange, basically freezing the number. When it goes green, your Tyrant's active and also has an actual duration tracker on it as well. For the most part, demonic consumption changed in Shadowlands. It's no longer based off of like imp energy. It doesn't kill them whenever you summon your Tyrant. Instead, it extends them. So the demonic consumption tracker, for the most part, needed a rework. However, it is now working. It is a part of this weak aura. To the same extent, it has a legendary tracker built into it for Warlock-based ones here. There's Sephu's Third Eye of the Jailer, Vitality Sacrifice, Norganons. Let's take a look at how that looks in combat. So hovering over the actual weak core here, you can see it tracks 7 things. Bale Spider's Burning Core, Implosive Potential, Dreadstalker's Legendary, Wrath and Consumption, Malefic Wrath, the Chaos Bolt Damage Amp and Reduction 1, and Relic of Demonic Synergy. So the cool thing here, we'll jump into combat here. We're always going to have your Tyrant, your Infernal, or your Dark Lair active here, whether you're in combat or not. We'll drop a hand of Ghoul in here. We will implode. And there it is. It shows baseline duration and also shows the actual haste amp you get. We have 3% because we hit 1 target here and we're wearing the Implosion Legendary. If we swap to 3 targets, for example, go Hand of Gul'dan, cast some dogs, so why not? Implode, you're going to have 15. And it will update based off of, you know, how many imps you implode and how many targets you hit, whether it expires or not. There's 10%. It's actually really, really cool, really solid, and just an awesome version of this weak aura, I suppose. Not that did a great job with it. Now, let's say, for example, you're playing Affliction. You can see that the actual main cooldown thing here swapped to Dark Lair from Tyrant. And let's say let's just put some dots here and say we're playing Malefic Wrath, which we actually are. So right here, you'll see a Malefic Wrath tracker. 1 stack, 2 stacks, it should show 3 stacks. There you go. Well, essentially, it's 75%, which is 3 stacks. So, I mean, hey, math, but at the same time, it's not too hard to do. So, like, it's really convenient, I think, personally, having your main cooldown being trackable above your own nameplate here, and then having, like, all your legendary effects, the effects that aren't really tied into, like, your baseline talents, your, like, actual toolkit in one central area. The cool thing with this week as well is that you're never going to be wearing more than 1 legendary. At least right now, hopefully later on, but so they're all essentially in the same spot. We also have Sephu's Third Eye of the Jailer, Vitality Sacrifice, Norganons, things like that, and they'll all be proccing in the same spot. One centralized area, you know where to look for your cooldown, for your actual legendary proc, your maintenance buff, whatever it is, you're good to go. To the same extent, I prefer it here above my name frame. You could also move it to your enemy name frame, which you're probably looking at it more, whether you're using it to track dots or just whatever, to a similar extent. But having it in all one centralized place is really important in my opinion, and thankfully, not did a great job with this. This weak aura works very, very well. Getting into the last few here, this one is a Soulstone weak aura. It basically just tracks if you have a Soulstone on somebody, if it's off cooldown. If it's on cooldown, meaning you can't cast it, it won't appear. But it's nice to have. It's honestly important to have when you're on progression and the guild's wiping, or potentially wiping, to have a healer to res the raid. Solid. I've used it for multiple expansions. Just a good all-around weak aura to have. Last couple here. Secondary stats just shows your stats down here. This will update that dynamically with procs and things in combat. Nice to have if you're looking at it for random reference points. Raid marker icon gives you an actual just large icon over your character's head here, I guess wherever you want it. If you're marked in raid by, you know, DBM or bigwigs or whatever, it will show you, like, you'll see the icon above your head here. It's just convenient. It doesn't really hurt much in the end, and I've used it a handful of times. It's been useful, to say the least. So, it's solid. I like having it around. It's good for progression, good for farm, just good for everything. The final one here is actually Cursor. This is the one I get questions about probably the most. So, all it does is put a cursor, a little circle over your cursor in combat. Now, I have this because quite often, at times, I'll say quite often, you do lose your cursor in combat or run a chance of doing that. It was actually a big issue on Gahun, I felt, in Old Gear, because most of the room was like gray and weird, like bland colors. So having this actual like circle around your cursor makes it easy to find it. If you're in combat in the middle of a boss fight and you lose it for whatever reason, honestly, I just shake my mouse and there's a purple circle flying around. You can change the color here from purple to bright green. You can make it red. You can make it pink, whatever you want. But it's super convenient, super simple, and is, for me personally, been a lifesaver plenty of times in PvE, raiding, Mythic Plus alike. So as far as actual add-ons go, the number one thing I'm going to say before we get too far into the video here, and what I can recommend, is OmniCC. Look at my Tyrant here, that yellow number there. OmniCC puts timers on weak auras, on spells, on your bars. Basically, like here, this is OmniCC, if I can find that on this list here. It puts timers on pretty much everything, which is one of the reasons why my actual weak aura doesn't have like baseline timers built into it. I like what OmniCC does. It puts it on weak auras, your actual bars. Even if I go into combat here and had a dot on this training dummy, it will put the actual duration on the dot over the dummy's head, which is using a completely different add-on in itself, which is Plater. We'll get to that. OmniCC is what I use, and most likely the reason why you're not seeing timers if you're using my weak auras or add-ons or profiles or whatever. Get OmniCC. So besides that, getting into everything else here, the first add-on I want to talk about is Bartender. So this is what I use for my central bars here. It's extremely simple. Unfortunately, there's no profile that I can share for it. There's no option to export a profile, but pretty much what I do here is if you get, let's make a baseline profile if I can do this here. Let me find, my bars are a complete mess here. So let's say that, let's go profiles, let's go default. There you go. So this is like a default profile, right? For the most part, you install Bartender. You're probably going to see this for the most part. You might see these. I don't really even know, but it's super simple. So let's get this out of the way. THE beat me on his Undergeared Shaman. Sad day. It wasn't an actual DPS off. Don't worry, boys. Anyways, so this is a baseline starting like frame of Bartender. What I do, you can left click to essentially bring this up and drag bars around if you want. You right click the icon here. Go away. There we go. To actually start customizing it all. So as far as this goes, first thing I'll do, let's get rid of this. Blizzard art bar. Enabled, disabled. This is like the Griffins. Get rid of that. Extra action bar. So technically, I'll just move this over here. This is where I have it most of the time. This is like your interaction button. Wherever you want it, you're good to go. Drop it where you want. But for the most part, that's what I'll do. Now, as far as like the artifact power bar, or I guess, you know, XP bar goes, this is actually a status tracking bar. I can disable it and enable it. Now, for the most part, I have this when it's enabled. I actually have it up here on my UI, but it's faded out. Now, people ask, how do you fade it out? You drag it wherever you want, go visibility. Let me actually turn this off. So we'll hop out of here. We'll get rid of everything. So we're back to like a baseline UI here. You can see it's actually up here. It's locked in place. I can't move it. But if you want to make it invisible, go to visibility, fade out. You can barely see it. 10%. You can make it 0%, 10, 50, whatever. Make it 0. Turn it off. Get rid of the actual configuration window. If you hover over its location, it will still pull it up for you, but it's not clogging up your UI with useless garbage you don't care about 9/10 of the time. This has actually been on my UI on live for the longest time. I just rarely ever look at it. I don't really, even look up here at this point, because who cares about leveling your neck? So as far as the bars go, going back to the setup here. Now, typically I have bars 1, 5, and 6 enabled. It sort of depends what you want to do, but it's super simple to set this up. What I do, I have my bag bar over here. I have my micro menu over here. And I just go like this, typically central bars, 1, drag them around 1, 1, 5, and 1, 6, and 5. There you go. If you want to make them larger, you can go here. You can scale them higher, scale them lower. If you want more space between the actual like icons here, let's go to bar 6. You go padding. You can pad them more, pad them less. You can add more buttons, less buttons. For the most part, I leave alpha and buttons where they are, even padding. And the scale, I normally make a little bigger. I like it to be around like 1.2-ish. I think it doesn't take up much more room. It makes things a little easier, a little neater, me personally. And that's pretty much that. It's super simple to set up. My pet bar is down here, by the way. I just drag it here. So for the most part, let's say these 3 bars are set to 1.2, 1, 6, and 5. We'll set the padding on 6 to 6 as well. There we go. So let's say all 3 of these bars are set. Normally I'd have my tyrant here, but it's bound to a different bar. So if you want to have these bars here for like random food, professions, whatever, you can. If not, you can just go over here. They are bar 3 and 4. Once again, you pull this up by left clicking on the icon. You can go here, 3, enable, disable. What I do for these, I just fade them out. Visibility on 3, fade out, 0%, 4, 0%, and you're good to go. So what that means is like they're over here still. If you need them, like, hey, I need to summon somebody. All right, cool, come over here. I know where it's at. Bam. I need a Hellstone. Bam, got it. But it doesn't take up like excess room on your UI. It makes things easier to see, which is more relevant than it might seem when it comes to Mythic Plus and rating. Quite often you see just a mess of a UI with bars over the place, and I don't need to see these in combat. I don't care. I know where they are. If I need a Hellstone mid combat, bam. I need stones, bam. I know where they are. It's good to go. As far as the bag bar, micro menu go, same thing. Personally, I have mine faded out. I know where the micro menu's at. I'll go over here, fade it out. Bag bar. I think I have my bag bar disabled, actually. I just actually hit B to open bags. So you can do either or. You can enable it, disable it, fade it out, whatever you want. But Bartender is super, super easy to set up. It quite literally takes, I don't know, 10 minutes, if that. And for the most part, you're pretty much good to go. I will say the pet bar, right here, I have it down here. Location-wise for your pet bar, it doesn't matter a whole lot. If you don't have your bag bar on, a solid like alternative would be to have it over here, but I don't have my bag bar on, and I know for a fact because I had damage meters over here. Speaking of details is indeed the actual damage meter that I use for pretty much everything. There's a lot of customization options with details, but for the most part, it's pretty much plug and play. I get questions a whole lot asking what profile or what setting I use for it. Like, I use the baseline one that comes with it. I don't use any weird skins, something like that. It's the baseline details profile. There are a couple options I've tweaked a bit, so I'll show you that. So getting into general here, the big question I always get is, how do I see myself in the damage meters if I'm not in the top X, 7 or 8 people if your meter goes, if you don't show all the people in the fight. Like if you're in a 20-man raid and it only shows the top 7 DPS, how do I always see myself? I never had that issue. I'm always number 1 in DPS, so we're good to go. But being real, if you want that options, bars general, always show me. That means if you see 1 through 6 in DPS here, normally you'll see 1 through 5 in yourself in 7th, 10th, 13th, whatever. You'll always be there. Number 2, getting into actual like bar height here. This basically just changes how big the bars are. It sort of helps you squeeze in more on your meter if you want. For the most part, I have it set to 21. Don't really mess with it a whole lot. Same with text size. I don't really change a whole lot. It's pretty much just plug and play what it comes with. You can change colors and how fast it updates everything, but for the most part, what it comes with is good for me. So the other big thing is people ask often, how do you get 3 windows here? It's extremely easy. Let's say I have 1 window, right? Just this. Here's my damage meter. Bam. You want to have, let's say, a second window for HPS. This is healing done. Let's say this is my damage meter, right? We have just damage done, current fight, and you want to have like a healing meter for the current fight. All you have to do, just go right over here, this little like cog window control, create window. There you go. You can shrink the size down if you want here. Second window here, you can drag it down, move it, like, make it bigger, make it smaller, do what you want, move it close. For the most part, it should lock, and then you can just change it. Damage done, the actual healing done. It's super easy, super simple. Normally what I have is, let's get rid of this. Normally what I have 3 windows, like 1, 2, 3. It's a little big now, and it's going to be like current damage, overall damage, and this one, let me close this out briefly. This one here was my healing meter, but I left it up. I changed it to actual damage to show you guys. So for the most part, I mean, I don't need one massive meter. Doesn't really do a whole lot for me. I want to see like average HPS per pull in Mythic Plus. I want to see, average DPS, current, and overall. Super simple, but for the most part, details is also pretty much just plug and play. What it comes with, baseline default profile wise, is what I rock. Just having 3 different windows is the main thing that's different from like the baseline one. So number 3 is actually Plater. Plater is my nameplates add-on that I use, and Plater actually does have a way to export profile. So if you want my profile, what you see on stream or YouTube videos, just go to my Wago. You can grab it right there. There's a link to my Wago down below. You hit the import string button. You come into game to import a profile in Wago. All you do, profiles, you go import, and you just paste it in here. The game will lag for like 20-ish seconds, and it'll lag again once you accept it, but it'll give you the exact profile that you see on stream on YouTube. You should be good to go. If you want to import that and then look at a few things, change a few things up. So the important things, at least for general nameplates, are pretty much in the general settings tab. It makes sense. So right here, you have space between nameplates. So I have it to 1.1. You can change it to, look over here, 0.2, barely any space. You can go all the way to 1.6. It gives you more space between the nameplates. Basically, how much it's up to you. It's personal preference. Like as far as affliction goes, which is normally what the spec I spend most of my time looking at nameplates with, 1.1 has been fine for me. That's pretty much what I've rocked for the duration of BFA. I don't really see any real reason to change it. View distance. Now, this is actually a big one because this affects how far you can see nameplates in the distance. Think back to Total War, where you walk in the start, you can see the end boss, you see everything, and 18 million frames in between. Same with Wake Forest Manor. This is it. View distance. You can change it, up it, put it up and down. I have been meaning to change it for years. We'll do it right now. Change it to, I don't know, 60 or so. Passively, it's going to be maxed out. You're going to want to feel it out on your own and see how things are for you, but that is how you adjust that. Now, as far as these go here, border thickness, you can go, I mean, it just adds a bit more of a border around the nameplates. For the most part, I don't really see a reason for it. I just leave it at 1. Health bar or width, all the way. You got some long bars. If you want to go back over here, bar height, you can make some big bars if you want. But for the most part, that's the gist of adjusting like bar size and things in Plater. Now, once again, whatever you've seen on YouTube or on Twitch, you can just grab my profile and it should work for you pretty much the way it is. It will differentiate between like casts that you can interrupt, that you can't, that you can stun, targets that aren't stunnable, all of that. And if I end up updating really anything with the Plater profile, I'll typically make a post in Discord or on Twitter saying, hey, I updated this if you want to grab it as well. But once again, Plater does have an import profile option, so it's pretty easy for you guys. So the next add-on, and this one, like Plater, also has an import profile option. This one is also in my Wago, and it's also in my actual paste spin. I will say though, when it comes to importing this profile, this is shadow unit frames. SUF. It's going to be my nameplates here, not these. This is still Plater, here. And if I go into like, let's say a raid setting, right? It'll look like this. You won't see all this, but you'll see raid frames, which are basically these rows here. There's an overlap of party frames and raid frames, but it's my raid frames. It's my party frames. It's my actual boss frames. It's pretty much everything. You can go to my Wago, go to my actual paste bin, grab the profile. Now here's the thing. If you get Shadow Unit Frames, just download it and you want to try and import the profile, you're not going to have the Layout Manager tab. You have to go to General. This is going to be unchecked. Check Advanced. Then go to this tab. Then you can import profiles. You can even export your own if you want to make your own profile and put it on Wago or wherever you want. But you have to check the Advanced tab to import profiles. Now I will say, Wago currently does not have a way of handling Shadow Unit Frames profiles. So it has like, these are all my weak auras here, which we just talked about, or I guess we will talk about. But it has SUF here. Here it is. My Plater profile's also here, which we just talked about right here. Plater actually gives you an option to import the string right there. It doesn't have that with Shadow Unit Frames. So the actual profile here, instructions in description, you click on it. Basically, you have to go in here and go to the Editor tab and just copy this whole string. Just triple click it, highlight the whole thing, Shift C, go into game, go Shift V in the Layout Manager, copy and paste, and you're good to go. That's it. It's incredibly confusing, people. I don't really know how, but it is. I sort of get it. Honestly, I wish I had an actual import tab for it, but I do have it both in my Wago and in my actual paste bin because it's a bit misleading, I guess, on Wago. So either or, it should be there for you, but for the most part, it's good to go. It will give you these frames here. My actual player frame, my target frame, target of target, target, party frames, raid frames. These actual frames over here, they're a bit hard to see, but normally I don't do arenas. If I do, they're over here. These are boss frames. So let's say, for example, like Council of Blood, the dance boss in Castle Nathria. It will show 1, 2, 3 bosses, and if a relevant ad spawns, it will show that one too. So it makes multi-dotting incredibly easy. So much simpler than having to go like, all right, okay, well, here, let's go Agony here and here and here and tab back and forth and move all around. All you have to do if you're playing Affliction with like 3 or 4 targets and like one's here, one's behind you, all you do, click the boss frame. Click 1, click 2, click 3. It will target that boss for you and allow you to reapply your dots or whatever you're doing to that boss much, much, much easier. Having a boss frame add-on like this, like Shadow Unit Frames, goes a long way in raiding, even with the plus at times. But really, these boss frames are invaluable in raiding, especially as an Affliction lock, especially on council fights or ads with, you know, relevant ads they need to keep dots rolling on. Super, super important. Once again, that is accessible to you guys if you want it for free on my Wago and on my paste bin. And the final like major add-on that I want to talk about a little bit here is actually Exorcist Raid Tools. The name is right here. So this is sort of like your catch-all raiding add-on that you'll use, I guess, in raiding for the most part. It's sort of like Angry Assignments meets just more advanced systems, I suppose. You can use it to a very similar extent, like Angry Assignments. I have mine up here. This is like Mythic N'Zoth notes, for example. We have actual disarms assigned, immunities, neck usage. This is like Psychic groups that are assigned. You can do this for every single boss. At the same time, your raid league can use it for raid cooldowns. You can look at like raid inspect, for example, saying like my gear, because I'm by myself here, obviously, what I'm wearing is telling me I'm wearing a bad trinket, but pre-patch, it's actually BIS. You can see people's gearing. You can see the fight log. You can see like raid cooldowns. You can see actual like food usage, cooldowns. It's just really important to have. And for the most part, if you're in a raiding guild looking at getting into one, it's important to have ERT because chances are high that guild's probably going to require that. There's a chance that they end up requiring Angry Assignments, which does basically this in a different form with much less options. But in the end, Exorcist Raid Tools is probably going to be an add-on that your guild either requires you to have or is going to ask you to get if you're looking at joining a raiding guild as a whole. Now, besides that, for the most part, that's the big add-ons that I use. Plater, Shadow Unit Frames, Weak Auras, Bartender, and a few other ones along the way. This is Sexy Map. The actual cast bar that I use is called Quartz, Q-U-A-R-T-Z, right there. You don't really need, yeah, Quartz, there you go. I will say there's a dot frame. There's a dot frame inside Quartz that you're probably going to want to disable. You go in here, I believe it's pretty much like all I really have enabled is just player. I don't have like target or focus or pet. no latency. Just disable everything but player, and you should be good to go, because it will give you like a random dot tracking, buff tracking page, which is odd for that. So once again, Quartz the cast bar. Sexy Map is the map add-on here if you want it. I do use Bigwigs for boss, like raid add-ons. So Bigwigs there. Now you will have to end up like configuring your own Bigwig settings. For the most part, you can honestly just download it and go with it. It's fine. There's no way to export profiles here, as far as I know. For the most part, mine's pretty much set it and forget it. I've dragged actual like anchor points around a little bit, but that's all just, you know, player preference, what you want to do. To a similar extent, I use Bigwigs in raiding. Let me go down here a bit. If I swear I can access my add-ons page, I swear. If we go down a bit, Little Wigs is the actual add-on that I use for dungeons. So it's basically Bigwigs alerts for dungeons. Little Wigs, and you're good to go. Everything else for the most part in here is not super important. There will be a full list in my actual Discord. It's on my, I guess on my Twitch, on my Discord. I'll put a list also in the actual video description here. But that's pretty much it for the most part. We have like World Quest Tracker, Trade Skill Master, but besides that, that's pretty much all that I use. Once again, all the profiles and everything are indeed available to you guys in my Wago. You can get it through my Twitch. You can get it through my Discord if you want to hop in there. And just run with it. Oh, I also use Bagnon for my actual... These are a mess. Don't worry about it. It's organized chaos. I know where it is. Bagnon. B-A-G-N-O-N. So the last little bit that I want to talk about are, I guess, the few macros that I actually use. Now, I don't use mouse over macros for dotting. I do it, I basically have a tab, or for the most part, just click individual nameplates and things. This is all going to be more or less personal preference. If you prefer mouse over macros for Havoc, for Soulstone, for dotting, go for it. If you don't, it's okay. Not the end of the world either way. But I wanted to show some of the ones that I use I think are pretty convenient and useful. Now, these are all going to be listed in my paste bin, which is accessible through my Twitch. Just exclamation point WA in chat will pull it up for you. I can't put them in my Wago. There's no way to put macros in there. So the first one here, this is nothing. The first one here is DS/BB. This is right here. This macro combines Demonic Strength and Bioscourge Bombers, which is number 6 on my bars here. So basically, if I run inside here, and I change from actual Demonic Strength, number 6, once again, the macro's right here, it will update. There you go. It's not bombers. So it essentially frees up a keybind, and you can use this for any spec. So how this is working, I suppose, is /cast talent 1/3, meaning the 1 here corresponds to the first row of talents, 1 and 3. 3 is Demonic Strength. So we're talking about this actual part here is referring to Demonic Strength. There you go. 1, 3. There you go. Talent 1, 2 is Bioscourge Bombers. If I was going to change this for, I don't know, let's say for Affliction, for like, I don't know, I'm not sure. For any talent row where you have 2 options, you just put like the actual row as the first number, and then you put the actual second number as whatever talent is in that row, being 1, 2, or 3, and the name. That's pretty much it. I use this for Demonic Strength, Bioscourge Bombers. To a similar extent, I also use one for Soul Strike and some in Vile Fiend. Now, let's be real here. In Shadowlands, depending on tuning, I'm probably not playing anything but Vile Fiend, I feel, because of, hey, Demonic Consumption and how OP it is. But this does give the option of having one button for Soul Strike or Vile Fiend. It'll change right here to Soul Strike, back to Vile Fiend. It's pretty convenient. I get questions about it a good bit, so I figured we'd talk about it here a little bit. I also have one for Affliction, if I can find it. Let's see here. There we go. Yeah, perfect example. Phantom Singularity and Vile Taint. If you want to, you know, this is actually pretty convenient because of how often you swap between PS and VT and Mythic Plus and rating, all of that. Once again, my 5th keybind here, PS, go to Vile Taint, and you're good to go. Now, if we don't have anything selected in that row, it'll be a question mark, but it's whatever, you know. So those are pretty convenient. This one here, my Rain of Fire macro. So this is essentially an @cursor macro. It makes casting Rain of Fire so much easier, so much simpler. You're no longer having to go like, all right, okay, well, let me, where's my Rain of Fire at here? Let me get my Inferno rolling. Let me get some shards rolling. All right, cool. Let me just start dropping Rain of Fire manually. That's annoying. Nobody wants to be like in the middle of a Rain of Chaos window, everything rolling, having in your Havoc window, having to go like this, having to go like bam. What this does instead, this is bound to my actual E keybind. What this does, I'm going to hit it right now. I'll hit it over here. There's no green circle. what it does, it just casts Rain of Fire wherever my cursor is. You can see the weak aura, the little circle here where my cursor is. It makes it incredibly easy, incredibly simple to cast Rain of Fire over and over and over. And with Rain of Chaos and Wilfrids and Soul Conduit being as OP as they are, your chances are high you're probably going to want to have this macro or a macro like this to a certain extent. It's just really, really, really convenient. Now, as far as his pet macro goes here, I have it here. This is more or less like your pet's second ability, like your imp having Singe Magic, your observer having Devour Magic, or your Fell Hunter, whatever you're playing. Imp, Succubus, Seduction, Voidwalker, Suffering, and an Axe Toss ability. So this is more or less like, hey, you have like your main thing bound for your Fell Hunter, for example, like Spell Lock or whatever. But its second ability, meaning like Devour Magic, let me just pull it out and show you guys. So basically, bam, there we go. Let's go into the spell book here. So if I had like this bound, for example, which I do on 8 right there, this ability here, if I was playing the right pet, for some reason I'm playing a Fell Hunter, it's normally an observer. Let's change this here. Normally this would say Fell Hunter. So if we change this to Fell Hunter, bam, Devour Magic right there. So you can keybind this, you can do whatever you want. I have it bound 2 things here currently. Normally it's just 1, but my UI is a little scuffed right now. So I can pop it, there you go. He'd run in and Devour Magic if he could actually cast it. Now, if you're playing a glyph like Observer or like Fell Imp or whatever, you're going to have to technically change the way this macro is worded. You're going to have to make it whatever pet it is. So like I'm playing a Fell Hunter right there. I normally have an Observer out. I don't know why I don't have one Ancestral, but whatever. I had it set to Observer and I didn't have the actual like option here. Same for this. I have Fell Imp, but normally I go back and forth to be fair. But if you're rocking a regular Imp, you change this from Pet Fell Imp to just Imp. I will have this actual macro in my paste bin as well. And for the most part, those are pretty much all the ones that I use. I have a mouse over macro for Soulstone as well. So if you're in like an actual party, for example, like pulling up Shadow Unit Frames here, let's say your healer dies, right? I have it bound here. I don't have to actually click them. I don't have to click off my target, like the enemy. I can just hover over them, hit F2, which is Soulstone, and it will actually res them. So that's convenient, but for the most part, that's pretty much like all the macros that I rock for the most part. There are a few for certain boss fights that I've played over time, but that's pretty much it. Oh yeah, THE sent me this one. It's pretty cursed. Yeah. So the final thing that I want to talk to you guys a bit about are keybinds, which is a question that I get a decent bit on stream as well. Now, in Shadowlands, there are some returning abilities. We have curses back, plus a few other ones, like, you know, Scouring Tithe, whatever covenant you end up going, Kyrians. But whatever you end up doing there, keybinds are very important. Now, for a long time, I have a gaming mouse. I have a Corsair Scimitar. So I have 12 keybinds on the side, plus technically 1 on the top. And if you use Shift or Control modifiers, that takes those 12 potential keybinds to 36 or 40, depending on what you're using button-wise, if you're using the top 2 buttons. So for a while, all I used was like, you know, basically I'd hit 1 through 5 on my keyboard. I'd hit F1 through 4 on my keyboard as well. Q, E, R, T, F. That was basically it. Everything like 6, basically like here and down, was bound either to my mouse, like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, or 12, or was bound to like a shift modifier. So basically, I get questions a lot. Are shift modifiers worth it? Yes, I think shift modifiers are definitely worth it. There's been plenty of times before where I use shift modifiers, or more so control modifiers, that it just gives you another level of reactiveness, I suppose. Like, it's so much easier when you take a lot of the damage when you have a lot of damage coming in. Let's say like in whatever scenario you're in, it's so much easier to actually have a keybound health pot than having to go like, all right, cool, incoming damage, click. You know, it's so much easier to have a keybound and you move on with your life. Now, at the same time, it's a bit tough, frustrating getting used to shift or control macros, or modifiers, but it's certainly worth it. So what I have here, like for example, I have 7 bound to Shadow Fury. If I go Shadow Fury, bam, I just hit 7 on my mouse, you're good to go. Control or shift 7 is Manifesto of Madness. If I go Control 7, it's Gateway. So, and that's all using the same button on my mouse, the 7 button. So technically, using Shift as a modifier and then Control as a modifier on top of just the baseline keybind gives you essentially 3 spells bound to 1 key, just by hitting either Shift or Control. And the same goes for, you know, for 8. Like if I have my pet out, if I pull my Fell Hunter out or my Observer, Spell lock. If I have something to banish, Shift 8 is banish. Control 8 is my actual Control 8. There we go. There you go. There you go. Is my actual like pet ability, like Devour or Singe or whatever. 9. Same example. Dark Soul. Shift 9. Fear. And if I see 9, it's Spell Domination. Same for here. Demonic Circle. I drop my circle. If I drop my circle, it's Shift 10. Actually, using my circle, 10. Control 10. Mortal Coil, which also is like, it's an incap and a heal. Like, it's just really important to have these abilities bound. For a long time, I resisted having control like modifiers, but even though it takes a bit of getting used to, it's certainly worth it. Now, once again, this is going to be personal preference for you guys, whatever you want, whatever works best for you. In the end, maybe you don't need to have as many spells bound as I do. Maybe you have more, maybe you have less, maybe you play a Demon Hunter, it can have 4 buttons on your bars total. Who knows? But shift and control modifiers are definitely something that I would look into to try and, I guess if you're not using them right now, to further improve your gameplay. Oh, and by the way, F9 is not F9. F9 is the middle mouse button. There you go. So, yeah. But for the most part, you can see all my keybinds here. You can't see these. I don't know why. I think they're bound through Bartender, but basically, this is like the shift part of my keybinds. This is the control part, C and like whatever number. This is like basically just the actual button on the mouse. It's certainly worth it. It turns 1 button into 3 abilities instead of 1. With only a little bit of getting used to. It's certainly worth it in my opinion. And I think that's about it, dudes. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. This has been a video that's been requested for a long time. But the problem was I really didn't know just how interested people would be in it. But I figured at this point we're heading into Shadowlands in less than, I guess like a week and a few days, technically 9 days. But at this point it's technically about 1 in the morning right now. I figured this would be a good time to make it. Getting new weak auras, new profiles, new add-ons, keybinds, macros, covering it all, knocking it all out. So hopefully this is helpful to you guys to some extent. Let me know what you guys think of the video, and if you have any questions in the comment section below, I'll be sure to get back to you guys. Also, while you're down there, let me know what you guys think of the new intro. I like it myself, but I'm curious. So once again, all the weak auras, profiles, add-ons you see here are indeed available to you guys on my Twitch. Technically, they'll be in the actual video description of this video, but they're normally available on my Twitch or Discord if you want to hop in there, or follow me on Twitch. Come by, ask any questions, grab them, hang out. Feel free to do so. If you guys want to see more WoW content, be sure to hit the subscribe button below. Hit that like button while you're down there as well. Helps out a lot. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.